I used to think Starbucks was a chain of cafes. Turns out I was wrong. Thanks to social justice outrage on the internet and a CEO's knee-jerk response to it, your local Starbucks is no longer a coffee shop. It is now a sanctuary heating station and washroom facility. Well, if you're planning to have a coffee at any corporately run Starbucks in the US next month, you probably will have to endure the indignity of grabbing a Java at Dunkin' Donuts. Instead, thanks to an edict from CEO Kevin Johnson, all the company-run stores will be closed for a day in May so that employees can receive sensitivity training. Yeah, apparently there's more to being a barista than pouring espresso into those tiny little cups. Now you need to be touchy-feely too. The flashpoint for this story is this. Last week, 2 black men were arrested in Philadelphia at a Starbucks after refusing to leave the store when asked. Here's what we know for sure. They were not paying customers up until the point they were asked to leave. They asked to use the washroom. They were denied access to the washroom because they were, to that point, not paying customers. And Starbucks policy is that washrooms are reserved only for paying customers. The men were allegedly eventually asked to leave. They chose not to leave. The police were then called. Cue the outrage. Now, as an aside, contrary to public perception, a restaurant isn't obligated to provide lavatory services to non-paying customers, nor is it supposed to entertain campers, people who come in, sit down, and spend the better part of a day taking up space that an actual patron could use. But since this is 2018, some of the nitty-gritty regarding the Philadelphia incident was recorded on cell phone cameras, and because it is 2018, the obvious conclusion reached by the social justice mob on the internet was that this was yet another example of egregious racism. Hey, what else could it be, right? And Starbucks being Starbucks, well, that's the kind of accusation that rocks such a groovy company to its very core. So the CEO jumped to action, believing that Starbucks was indeed mired in a genuine crisis and that its Philadelphia employees were in the wrong. And so it is that some 8,000 stores are slated to be shuttered, millions of dollars forfeited, and staff will be receiving a condescending lesson from their superiors regarding something called implicit bias. That essentially translates into park your privilege in the locker room and be nice to black people next time one of them needs to see a man about a horse. So essentially, overnight, Starbucks has devolved from a cool and comfy cafe to a chain of miniature sanctuary cities. They may as well put the plaque one sees on the Statue of Liberty on the front door. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, and other non-paying customers. Now, we don't know the full story yet behind this incident. The men who got arrested were not homeless, and we're not sure why they simply didn't leave when they were asked to do so, or why they didn't when the police showed up. But what we do know, however, is that an entire corporation just had a massive knee-jerk reaction to the mere suggestion that one employee might have demonstrated what some might deem to be racism by calling the police on 2 men. That's outrageous. And I predict it's going to be tough sledding ahead for certain Starbucks stores, especially those situated in the sketchier parts of town. Because the next time, say, a homeless person wants to come into a Starbucks to use the washroom or linger for several hours, hey, no problem. And what if that person suffers from mental illness and causes disturbances to what was once a very tranquil environment? Well, what happens then? Don't want to employ that evil illicit bias after all, so let them be, I guess, and hope that all the paying customers are packing noise-canceling headphones. I don't want anyone to be denied heat on a frigid day, nor a place to relieve themselves when nature calls, but that's simply not the role of a private sector cafe. Or it wasn't the role of a private sector cafe until now, because as always, we live in a day and age in which optics as opposed to common sense moves the dial when it comes to so-called social justice. So in other words, chalk up another victory for the takers as opposed to the makers. For the Rebel.media, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies. Hey folks, the Rebel has a brand new app. Please download that app and take the Rebel with you wherever you go.